Village David. My first fair was 1978 as merely a tourist, and started volunteering in 1983. I got involved and still involved with the Extension Service Master Gardeners. And I came out to this territory in '78, came to the fair as a day person. I was already, let's say, familiar with the culture. I knew some people in town from that, so it was a one-day thing for me. My life was busy. And then in 1983, the county cut off the funding for the Extension Service, OSU Extension Service, which provides agents to the county asking questions on how to grow, preserve, and cook food. A great resource. The problem was, at the time, they had a reputation for being chemicals only, and there was an awful lot of people who would vote, who might just register just to vote down the enemy being the chemical. And but I felt it was worth saving because they were starting to offer alternatives. And the fact that they were offering alternatives and it was worth saving, it was county-wide to get the word out. And I was not a master gardener at the time, but I did the work parties, attended the meetings, and scheduled the actual master gardeners in 1983. At the time, OSU Extension had the reputation for being chemicals only, but alternatives were being offered. And so I was worried that there's a lot of people who would actually sign up to vote for the express purpose of voting against the chemical issue, you know, and as a political act. And so the word had to get out that they were offering alternatives. It was countywide. It was worth saving. And so that was in 1983. In '84, I went through the Master Gardening program. As far as the fair was concerned, the first year I was involved was the year of the old integral house, integral. And that was modeled after a house in Berkeley with the advanced of its thinking of its day, solar showers and, you know, greenhouse and stuff. And this area of community village, we know as community village, actually started out as a modest display of appropriate technology and was the original energy park. Then the hippies don't cut the trees, so the trees filled in. They needed more sunlight, more community things were coming on. So the hippie high-tech people started Energy Park. But this building that constructed was still there, and for a while and that's where the Master Gardeners were at the time. So eventually, because it was just two 55-gallon drums on the roof and a bad system, and Energy Park was using a flow system, it was decommissioned and eventually replaced with the current design. So, so I heard about this. I hear the gates open at 9 o'clock for work parties, and get there, and I remember main camp was about a dozen people in a campfire, and I was thinking, if you've got volunteers, you don't want everybody starting campfires and cooking and bringing. Wouldn't it be more efficient? I'd be willing to pay. I'm a volunteer. I'd be willing to pay you for a bowl of soup. No, that'll never happen. So it expanded from there, and stuff like that. And I remember the entire, we expanded main camp water supply to a 200-gallon drum on a truck. And I said, isn't that a bit much? No, I think. So it's just evolved. There was absolutely no infrastructure. There was no place to come in out of the rain. I think the first building we had was a single-wide trailer for a caretaker. We built the ware barn, and this is how bad was it. That Shea Ray would loan us his commercial stove, 8-burner, 2-oven. And we'd store it in the ware barn and use it pre-post and give it to him during this thing. Well, it depended on two things. If we had a pickup truck, and in those days a pickup truck was worth a camping pass. I mean, look at the vehicles we have now, right? If we had a pickup truck and we had 8 guys, how bad was it? It was so bad that one of the 8 guys, 2 or 3 years in a row, to load the truck and unload it and move it, it was so bad, they were so desperate, the skinny guy with one hand had to help them. That's how bad it got. So, and you know, there was a time you could pretty much know everybody, but it's just, oh my, you know, and the generation, kids keep growing and you don't recognize them, and, you know, stuff like that. And so we decided years ago we got to try and get a handle on it. So some of us who are on site year-round started, Dasher and Dahinda and those people started the Vegmana crew. And Dasher started the highway cleanup, which a bunch of years ago, got an award for being, from ODOT, for being one of the longest continuous cleanups. You know, we were one of those top ranking. And we started out with CB, Citizens Band radios. The base stations were run, you know, we'd pull batteries out of cars to run them all weekend. And then have to jump start the cars Monday morning, of course. And the neighbors would interfere with our radios, even with medical responses. Some people just didn't like us. You know, they actually interfered with the medical response, which is a no-no. In the beginning, the milestones were since things were tapering off of that structure. The second year I was there, they asked. Well, the first year I was there, they asked me for the second year to be booth coordinator. And then the third year I was asked to be on council. And so those are early milestones. A few years later, main camp, one of the biggest milestones was when the first Women's Journal went in. I come here and I said, what do you know, people poop once a day, you gotta pee, especially in hot weather, they're supposed to, you know, several times a day. All we need is like a phone booth, go and pee. And, well, isn't that sexist? What about women? Well, you know, there's women's journals. You're really weird, David, you know, because on top of it, I'm hard of hearing, and this and stuff, so I miss a lot, and socially, you know, backwards, and all this kind of stuff. And okay, that does it, women, you know, and so I'm trying to push men's journal. When I mentioned women's journal, and women are telling me, there's no such thing as a women's journal. No woman would ever use one, and anybody any man that keeps talking about it obviously needs a 10-step program. And this is going on, so I finally got the first women's journal. It wasn't quite the design I'd asked for. It was supposed to have railings on both sides, just a long railing on one side, short railings on the other, and hanging knotted ropes. Anyhow, so that was a milestone. And another milestone, well, was getting it in, but the response. You know, I was told that it got more response, that response issue got more response than any other issue in the history of the response thing. People were coming up to me, complete strangers, and babbling. It is, see, and there's got to be two types. See, a lot of people don't like the open trough because of splashing. You don't want to look at women's butts. You want support on both sides. Well, that one was supposed to have support on both sides. It's private stuff. But what about the people who've got these monster bouffant costumes? And those stall types don't work. And what they liked was, they said, you know, I'm camped out in Gahoozyville, and it is faster, and for me, to go all the way to Shady Grove, to the Women's Journal, like a guy, do a quickie, in, out, done. blessing me, hugging me, blah, 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 blah. And I'm writing down these comments, and just, I posted this fair discussion list, this report of a mommy and a little girl are walking out, and they meet a friend. And, well, how's it going? And the little girl, because they're not afraid to fall into the dark pit of the six-pack, the smelly porta potty. It's open with, oh, I used the women's journal with mommy. It was wonderful. You know, all these things. And one of my highest honors that was ever paid to me is on this fair discussion list. A lady from the village said that she had her doubts, to paraphrase, had her doubts, but used it, is now enthralled, thinks it's wonderful, is advocating for it. Anybody who wants a tour, just contact her. And kudos to David Hoffman, who persisted all these years, even though we made fun of him. So that was a milestone, getting that, breaking the ice. Unfortunately, you know, I expect, you know, next year they'd have, you know, we're like 10 years overdue for main camp. That six-pack needs rebuilding. And the thing is, oh, there's no room. Shady Grove six-pack, when I tried to get the first men's journal in there, there's no room. He said, what do you mean there's no room? You only need room for, you know, a telephone booth or just, you know, a couple of, you know. And so somebody put it in, I hate to say it, but it was a female carpenter. And here's this wall, like the length of here, along the side wall of the six-pack. And room for like 8 guys, right? So he puts a blind wall in. And then, but the urinal's against the six-pack, and there's only room for 2 guys and 1 big guy, and wasting this entire wall. After telling me there's no room. So I said, well, there's room for a women's urinal. No, there's not. I said, don't give me that. You keep telling me this, you know. You know, all you need is a deck with a trough and the railings, and, you know. But David, I said, it's not my idea. It's existed for thousands of years. Why do you think Victorian ladies had these big hoop skirts and went in mass out to the flower garden where they surround the one in the middle who would tinkle onto 3 rocks or whatever the designated spot was? Not me, you know. Okay, so that's a highlight. And there's a lot of the highlights, of course, come pre-fair. And I guess, you know, I'm a teacher. We're all students, we're all teachers, but I really get it when somebody just lights up. You know, it's just, you know, oh, until they saw it or they actually held it in their hand. And the word heft, it's not just what is the weight, what is the, you know, but how does the center of gravity go through its arc, and the grip, the mating, the prosthetic device of the handle that mates the hand to the tool. You know, there's a tool and then there's the handle, the grip, and how now they have feels of how all this combination of movement called heft, and just hefting different tools, and just how here's 3 hammers and they all heft different ways, or 3, 5, half a dozen machetes and they all have their own heft. Or, wow, a sharp tool really does make a difference. Wow, 2 people on a bow saw can go through a 9-inch log in 18 seconds compared to 1 person. I had 1 person doing this drug, you know, I helped him for a while, got another one, and that was his highlight. You know, like, oh my, you know, it's just, you know. Or we have a path from a camping area along a drain slough for a fire escape. And every spring we have to, even though no brush cutting, we have to shear that back to this line on the edge of the green for a fire escape. And I do gardening and pruning and stuff, and volunteer with the extension service. And tools, you have like a saw blade and a handle, and the handle could be short, but if it's just a little bit longer, even a foot long, you can get 2 hands on it and use your whole body. Whole body. And my favorite is an 18-inch blade with an axe handle. And it's not so much for reach, but it gives you plenty of room to space your hands and use your entire body, and is really good for tight places where a chainsaw might be a problem, and has some other benefits because you can brace with your elbow above and below and your shoulder. And so we need this area cleaned up, and some of it is clipper work and some of it is saw work. So some people show up, and I say, the person looked young and fit, so I asked them if they did Tai Chi, and they said, oh, it turns out they were a physical therapist person type thing. So how do I get their attention, right? You do Tai Chi, yep. Would you like to do practical Tai Chi? Practical Tai Chi, what is that? So I said, you see this saw with the axe handle? So I got some people and I showed them the different techniques. And I said, you know, you're not going to get done today. Just take your time, just start and do it right, and just, you know, just be safe. So they come back and they were, man, that was really trippy. Practical Tai Chi, you know. And next weekend she shows up again. And I said, boy, am I glad you're here. And there's about 4 or 5 other people who are looking for work. And she shows up, boy, am I glad you're here. Would you, and pointing to the other group, would you like to teach a class on practical Tai Chi? Oh, I'd love it. And they had a blast, and it was safe. And it was something, it wasn't just make work, it was something that was important that they could get, you know. So, you know, things like that, you know, it's just taking a, and I tell people, you know, you're welcome to use the tools, but the saws are not cheap stamped sheet metal. These are ones I've come across, or Carson's Saw Shop, and has them, saws that are high alloy, heat treated, precision taper ground to a few thousandths of an inch, so the tooth edge is slightly thicker. So treat them with respect. And I was trimming an edge, and usually they're like chisels, inline chisels, and just shaving off. And I hear this voice. I've always heard that the tool follows the hand, but I never understood what it was. Or people, they're trying to nail some fencing boards, and they're little box nails, but they're using a framing hammer, which is for full swing, and you can't choke up on it because it's a metal hammer, and there's nothing to grip. So, okay, try this one, which has a wood handle for driving, and you can choke up and, you know, just get that balance of weight and leverage and the swing, you know, part of heft. So it's a learning experience. Early on, I remember when in the years I was still a tourist from 78 to 82, I came on site and it seemed like it was almost cheek to jowl booths. And later I asked about that. Yeah, there was a period where all of a sudden they had a big commercial build of booths. So that was one change. But again, main camp kitchen was a campfire and 12 people. You know, Santos and a few others, you know. And a camp, you know, and, you know, bring your own food. And veggies hadn't started. Construction crew, here I am, a gardener, and they're putting up fences, and I'm loaning them my hammers. I do gardening and small farm work, and I'm loading even my ball peen hammer, which is weighted for, you know, for striking in a vertical position, which is not really what you want for nailing boards horizontally, but that's how desperate they were. Not only desperate, they didn't have enough hammers, they had to borrow some from a gardener. One of them was a ball peen, for God's sake. So things have changed. The village, we use all recycled lumber and used nails. Water was trucked in. The truck, you know, my first, you know, the first time I ever saw a tanker. And yeah, and then the underground system, and then the phone system. and then going from the citizens bands to our first own radios, which were used radios, which were the bricks, because they were tough as a brick, but they were about the size and weight of a brick, and you really needed to carry a canteen of water on the other side of the balance. But they're tough. But now we have other generation. Security. The big difference is in that we will never get to we'll never sweep the parking lot. I remember the first sweeps in '83. I'd help sweep, and we would sweep to Reefer Bridge, which is a natural barrier, and everybody would hang out in the parking lot ready to come to search. Then there wouldn't be enough volunteers, and we'd give up the bridge at Reefer Bridge, and we used that as a pre-filtering, right, in this block. And so all we had was submissions, one line, and it got problems. People, just swarm, until eventually we got some people's attention, and they brought in some coordinators who knew all the fake, the counterfeit pass, and knew, And I remember all of a sudden there's a bunch of big boys, and here's Santos, and somebody threw down some hay bales, and Santos jumps up on top and is directing traffic. Finally got their attention, Main camp fence only went to the bridge, so you could walk off the bridge and around behind main camp fence. I go to check in, how's it going? And this guy opens the door, and he says, "Can you watch the door?" And there's this guy walking through main camp, okay? And he says, can you watch the door for a while? These people are sneaking in. And he says, "Well, don't you have to?" "No, I'm by myself. They want me to protect the entire main camp by myself, and they don't even have a fence in the way." Stuff like that. My vision, what I'd like to see, and how we're going to do it with the problems we have of, hate to say it's population and minimal land, and trying to save the vegetation. Lump Committee is soon, hopefully, going to have what I believe one of the reasons the veggie started is to act as the county recorder of deeds. And the fair says you're allowed about 10 square feet for your booth, about 10 square feet for camping. It's okay, this is my booth, that's my camp, and you see that 2-foot strip between me and my neighbor? I'm stewarding that. That's it. No, we're not that's the line, that is it. And because we evolved on the plains and with foliage in our vision, that's part of our genetics. And billions, with a capital B as in Baltimore, of dollars are spent on landscaping to break up, the expression is to break up architectural lines, So, and plus, here we are in the shade. I mean, there's plenty of people out there in the sun. Here we are in the shade. There's a lot of people buy some land or whatever, some land. The first thing they did was not cut down the trees. Okay. So we plant trees, we try and preserve it. So it'd be nice. So if somebody comes to us, and goes into camps in that area, well, I only needed 2 feet for my. No, you can't. I appreciate you only needed 2 feet because of something at the other end. However, well, I've been camping there for 5 years. No, you haven't been camping there for 5 years. What? Well, who are you to? It's not just me. I'm being backed up. The surveyor. Because we'll be able to preserve the green, especially in the 8 and stuff. Okay, early story. I first got involved at '83. Marshall Landman, who's board of directors and crew services and a bunch of things. Had been a master gardener apparently with Diane years ago, and I believe they had been in the original Integral House. And he was standing right out here in the meadow. He says, "David, we point north to main stage, and there's so little foliage you can see all the way across from path to path. In there, if we could get out those few campers out of there and just have people on the outer edge, we could have something solid. In all places, who would think it's right next to the junction? Hello? You've been back there. It's pretty dense. So it's, it's stewardship. The village ends, and that's green space. So, and just to have it, oh, David, it makes a beautiful campsite. Well, then it wouldn't be beautiful anymore, because eventually it's going to mission creep, or give an inch, take a mile, or I only need 2 more inches, and just it's gone. So just leave it alone. It's like a nest. Even we don't go in there, okay? And just let it be. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple deer hanging out in there. We know there's there's animals hanging out there, So at least something. And but basically, yeah. Even if you've only got your square foot garden of greens, that it should. Part of the vision to preserve that. That's part of my preserving is part of the vision. The issue is that the hippies have kids and the kids have kids, and years ago at just about every stage there was fighting expansion because we've already got enough crews. We can't afford it. There's too many crews. There's too many coordinators. We don't need electricity at main stage. We only said we could use amplified to be off batteries. I said, well, hello. First of all, we need a bigger power, and plus we want to run a route to Whitebird. Now, do you want us working on your splinter from flashlight, or with a real, honest-to-God examination lamp? And so eventually, and now growth. We've got transformers on several transformers on site, sub base station transformers on site, and over the years, including during the fair, we have blown transformers because of the power we're using. We had nothing. So the vision of the future, what I'd like to see, I have, worrying about it, where people are going to camp. It could be that we may, and it's changes though, the neighbors, a lot of who justifiably didn't like us many years ago, are now have camps, and and there are people, it's not just for tourists. I know people who are on crew who pay money, who could camp on the fair for free, but can't, there's not, and they just said, nuts to it, I'm just going across the street, pay my fee, and it's my camp, and I'm not going to argue with any more staff coordinators, and I got a place, and it's worth it, away from the fair, The change, the alcohol issue, when we, on-site tickets, it used to be that people, like Autzen Stadium, that people would come and party in the parking lot. So we had to buy a ticket to get on site, and no more alcohol. The immediate changes were, the next morning it was much cleaner. You had fewer incidents of bozos yelling across open spaces about women. Security was bored. Whitebird was down. Everybody was happier. And eventually we did sweep the parking lots. So maybe another question is, why is the fair important? For me, music and art is good, and the reason for its own existence. Of course, if it's supposed to perform a function, it could be beautiful, but it really should perform the function and not just look pretty. Okay? But why do we do the fair? Why is it important? That music and art is good, but a lot of us here have political reasons. I got involved originally. What we do, the council is a coordinating council. We provide a platform, a venue for political activists, social activists, nonprofit year-round groups to have a platform for literally the rest of the world and to get the word out. So we're here for political reasons. And what effect do we have on it? I could give you 3 really good examples. One of them is that even though this is one of those, this isn't, the bumper sticker, it says, this isn't California, you don't have to drive that way here. This story is, even though I'm hard of hearing, hearing aids are like a microphone amplifier speaker, I'm overloaded, life is like a movie with a bad soundtrack. And no captions, and no, editing. Real time. And I happen to be standing next to 2 elderly gentlemen who appeared to be tourists. This happened for sure twice, and I think 3 times. One of them says to the other with deep emotion, "This place is amazing. People bump into each other and say, 'Excuse me.'" Something that you and I, it is our muscle memory, instinctive. "Oh, excuse me." Okay. To them was so profound that they spoke of it, probably because the other guy was hard of hearing too, but I could hear it in all that noise. Okay? What does that? That's an effect we have. Another one is, I was searching for something and I came across, actually I was searching for Barefoot Friendly, did not find it at this site, but the site was iFish, a hunting and fishing blog. A person who is a retired career Marine comes to the fair, has a wonderful time, and says, and this is a retired career Marine, 40,000 people and not one piece of trash on the ground. We can't say that for our riverbanks. Okay. Oh yeah, a lot of people are not aware that not only are the crafts juried, but the food is juried. You just can't get in here with supermarkets and hot dogs. Everything is juried, including the food. And, okay, a lot of times you go in some place, you pay to get into this place, like a county fair, and then you have to pay extra for the stage. Not only, I lost track, 14, 15 stages. Once you get in, all the stages are free. You have to get there when the set is out, take your lunch or something, but they're all free. No more money, for stage entertainment. Another thing, which is very profound to the rest of the world, water problems, right? And even in the United States, you go someplace, there's an obligatory drinking fountain off there someplace, and you have to buy drinks or overpriced bottled water. Here, we advertise, bring your own water bottle, free, all you can drink water. We want you to drink water. We want you to be happy, we want you hydrated. We don't want to have to respond. Everybody's happy. Please. We have more water spigots than we have drinking fountains. And understand something else about the fair and why we do it. Yeah. Apparently, in overall fairs, worldwide, this is worldwide fairs, up there with Glastonbury and Rio de Janeiro, apparently, there are a lot of different charts, but on some charts we are as high as the top 10 in the world. In other categories, instead of the expression which was put on us in political days of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, contrary to that, and at some of our early history, we have a reputation in the classification of family and child friendly. We are way up there. As far as unique and spirit and friendly and unique comes up a lot. We are way up there. Our security tells us that law enforcement tells them that we are a non-event. They would rather do 5 Oregon Country Fairs than 1 Autzen Stadium football game, tailgate, alcohol was involved party. That said, we do have a big boy crew. We have an off-duty sheriff in squad car and uniform parked right by the gate off the highway. That gets their attention. However, we do teach, we don't do crisis intervention training. We do humanistic intervention training. And we are noted for it. A lot of the public feedback forums, like, where do you hire these people? I mean, not realizing that 95% of us are volunteers. You know, it costs us money to do the fair. You know, out-of-pocket expenses, even though I earn a free pass, out-of-pocket expenses, time off of work. You know, but the public is, you know, wow, where do you hire these people? You know, it's just who we are. So we have that reputation as a fair, and in fact, and we have a benevolent funds. Thank you. I think the school, the local art programs, I think the library, maybe the swimming pool, I'm not sure. Plus, you heard about KOCF 92.5, right? We're wondering where to put this antenna on our property, and can we afford the base? And we've been talking, our people have been talking to the community, well, it'd be great, the school could do educational programs, local news, sports program, you know, from the game, and disaster response, to the point where, and the community is really into it, so to the point where, with the antenna, the way I understand it, the local district fire chief actually requested that the hippies put the antenna on his array or thingy, whatever it is, for not only community radio, but for his disaster response and all that kind of stuff. So it may be on the air in a few days. So that's good. That's I mean, hello. I mean, it's just, you know, there it is. A change in, you know, our force locally and in the world. You know, people tell us, hey man, I was in Bazookaville, you know, or someplace, you know, and oh yeah, man, you know. I have a neighbor who's a cab driver, and he said that he actually had a couple who came in from Germany only to do the fair. Picks them up at the airport, oh, take us to the fair. It says, well, you probably want to take the shuttle. I said, no, I want a cab, right? No, you don't want to take a cab to the fair. The reason being, if I drive you to the fair, it's going to take a long time, we're going to be stuck in traffic, and I'm probably, at this early date in the day, I'm not going to be able to get a ride back in. You're not going to be happy, I'm not going to be happy, and you can be happy. I'll drive you to the Valley River, you get on the bus, it's nice, you get routed different, you get up to the front gate. Okay. And after that day, he gets a call from them thanking, can you please meet us at Valley River and be our driver for the evening. They were so impressed that the local cab driver didn't try to rip them off. And it was, you know, and did it, not only it didn't want to rip them off, but to make it an enjoyable experience. Just getting there. Just that attitude, just set them up for the fair. Okay.